politically tidy, usually welcomed by associate. In the latter canon law of Tory events, the comparatively sleek disembarkation of the assignment is an accomplishment in himself. But driving Sajid Javid in, following Succinnic Rudd took herself of, does not end the main secretary's problems. She and Mr. Javid requirement to go quick to cauterize the policy wounds of Windrush. He can, and did, do a more than irresistible and private instance in the building of House of Commons, show which seems actual wrath on which has happened to such trapped up in Windrush, and fearless to use his own household history to screen it too much. Associate include named him a nice carrier, and merciful and sympathetic. Lot in Westminster are indicating to his own household story as the final Tory vision, the boy whose debt arriving in Britain in £1 in his pouch, who via difficult job ended up in the office, in a picture of Margaret Thatcher on his side. His assignment is as well a milestone. He is the at first political figure of an ethnical minority group to get on one of the large offices of country, the largest jobs in office. But everything, the representation and the policy exchanging messages, the realities of the Windrush debacle influence actual lives. He's not departure to be flat in a new person or a more than sympathetic soundbite. For one day, you might tell, the is not fair a Westminster laundry soap opera, but a chaos how harmless Brits include been trapped up in via no error of their own, an unintentional impact of a ratcheting up of by the government blood pressure on migration above the year. Mr. Javid's at first job is to get a capture of how, and quick. He could not speak MPs present if the household office space had transferred out any deportations, in spite evidence of MPs how they are listening such stories in their constituencies. He could just say how by the government would consult on its plans for reimbursement, that will be overseen by an foreign. The is the begin of the cleaning, not the end of the chaos. Yet he is an skilled secretary, who has skilled considerable blood pressure up, though telephone call for him to abandon while Tata Steel was up for selling and he, as industry secretariat, was on the some party of the planet. Or, as communities secretariat, same spin hard to transactions in the radioactive fallout of the Grenfell tragic and the comprehensible wrath and disappointment of such struck. The household office space yet is a various enterprise generally, outlined by one ex-secretary as a sparkling tomb for policy careers. And it isn't fair the problem of sort out the Windrush chaos how is on his desktop, severe criminality, contemporary bondage, the enormous issue of migration politics following Brexit, police force reformation, the listing goes on. And same will include a key chair at the spreadsheet in the by the government's ongoing intrigue above how to supervise customs officer and the boundary following we keep the EU suspended in the air. Although a various problem, how lot can he break down off, how lot does he wish to flee, of his lugs heritage in Marsham Road? Succinnic Rudd too had to transactions in house succession. Though she may include had various view to the main secretary in several areas, though several who aware her so trust how she didn't ever stay up to Theresa May quite. But she was a more recent political figure, assigned by Theresa May, portion of her draft, though deputizing for her in main TV debates behind in the recent poll. Mr. Javid is a quite various nature. He was to begin in, a nature friend of the main secretary. In reality, he is understood to include been quite amazed how she stored him on. As habitation secretariat he spurred difficult, eventually poorly, to do more daring moves rather than quantity 10 and 11 would take. Already present he has done simple house aims prepared to rubbish current politics. In the House of Commons, Mr. Javid discarded the tongue of the enemy environmental, the household office space period for hard to do lifetime hard for illicit migrant in the UK so they wish to keep. His friends say he has an insight in quantity 10, how though the policies he inherits were substantially intended by the main secretary, he will be his own person. But how insight could torment quantity 10 above period if he strays too far of the main secretary's link. Source propose love largest of the office. He is no fan of the common migration goal to get the net numbers by 100,000. As and while he is requested on it, will he include the courage and the policy equity to say its period might be up? Would he, once again love lot of his associate would expect, sense brave quite to say openly how he wants students to be release of the blood pressure of how goal? As a ex-industry secretariat he will be so expert in such arguments. As habitation secretariat he told how if brickies were necessary of overseas, migration restrictions must not stay in the way of the houses the nation desperate as necessary. The household secretariat although is not a intentional destructor and departure on his division's latter recording, he's difficult to think the harm of Windrush can be done abruptly to vanish. But he is a political figure in vanity, and a enormous prospect in front line of him how could do him a really severe candidate for the top work, if, and he's a big if, he is capable to get it made. Who treated near him told eventually Sajid will do which is in Sajid's interests. Theresa May might discover a fellow quite thirsty to break down in her history, and do his own mark instead of